Watch collecting came in, luckily and unluckily, quite late in the Vamps. I kick myself thinking what I maybe would have now on the table if I had spent my money on watches when I started making money. But at the same time, maybe I'm lucky enough to have this collection now because I didn't spend my money then. You know? And I think my wife, if I hadn't bought the flat that we live in now and I'd bought like a Paul Newman Daytona or something, she wouldn't be with me anymore. So
yeah, you've probably done it the right way around.
I think I have.
So loads of people will know who you are. But for
I'm not sure about your followers. But,
those who don't know who you are,
yeah.
what do you describe yourself as? What would be your introduction?
I think the name that's probably synonymous with most people is the Vamps, which is a band that I founded in 2011 with Brad, our singer.
Right.
And I've done that ever since, really.
So throughout that massive... Sounds like it's ended. It hasn't ended. During your career, where did watches come in? You mentioned your father-in-law.
Yeah, so watches.
This is an amazing collection.
Thanks, mate. Thank you. This is my kind of
joyful to see.
Thank you. It's nice to see them in one place. I mean, I'm very lucky. I've got a few more, but I find these are the ones that I rotate around at the moment. So my wife's father, Steve, who actually introduced me to your channel,
cool.
and everything I know about watches. He'd been hounding me for quite a long time, and would always sort of show me bits and pieces. And I'd never really been fussed. I mean, I had like watches growing up, but like fashion things, and didn't really care about them. And then something clicked. I don't really know why, but I was in the Seychelles filming for some like ITV competition segment, which is cringe, but I was swimming kind of like with turtles, and I was thinking, I don't know why, but it felt very like James Bond-esque, and I was like, I would love to have like a Submariner on my wrist. And I was like, why do I like Submariners? And then I realised that one of the photographers that shot the Vamps since day one had a no-date sub on like a leather strap, and I'd always seen that, thought that looks really cool. I didn't really know what it was. So I had all these things sort of chipping away at me, and they kind of culminated into this one like conclusion where I was like, I'm going to buy a Submariner for my first watch. So this is the first, this is the sub, which
cool.
Yeah, not a fan of the strap, but
yeah, looks a bit cheap though.
No, you know what? I think we've got to say this is a strap that agent very kindly just put on this for me, and
Thanks,
I think this makes the sub look like it feels like it's a new watch again. The thought of me wearing an Oyster bracelet around London now is just crazy, which it pains me to say, but yeah. I put this on a slightly different NATO that just looked horrible, but I was so buzzing about the thought of maybe being able to wear my Submariner again. I wore it to the gym. I was like, I'm going to wear my subs to the gym. Like, let's go. So that's the first one. If we're talking about really sentimental things, we've got this, which is my Grand Seiko SB GM221. The story behind this is I was on honeymoon in New York with my wife. She'd mentioned that she'd seen a Longines a couple of weeks before, and I went to Watches of Switzerland, which is massive in I think it's the meatpacking district, is it somewhere around there? We went in there, and out of everything she saw, she pointed to this. And like, I've been a big Grand Seiko fan for a few years now, so when she saw that, I was like, oh my god, yes.
Yeah.
And I didn't, you know, it was like I wasn't planning on spending that sort of money there, but I was just like, you know what, like if there's ever a watch that I wanted to have first, it would be this. So this is her kind of daily, really, and I'd like to steal it every so often.
What a solid daily. Exactly,
and I love the fact that you can dress it up or dress it down, really. Yeah. I think the GMT makes it really fun, and I just think, you know, for the money as well, like exhibition case back, wears really, really nice. Like I just love it. I know we were going to speak about sentimental things, but I'll just quickly mention the other Grand Seiko on the table, just because we were speaking about it. So this is my Shunbun. Now, I don't particularly think this NATO works, and whenever I post this on Reddit, I get a lot of mixed opinions. But I think if we're talking dials, I don't know what beats this for me. And I love the fact that every day I wear this, it's like having a different watch. So it looks really silver in this light, but I took this on the last Vamps World Tour, and in Byron Bay, this was like not a million miles away from the watermelon, which was absolutely insane. Of the spring drive, I mean, it's brilliant. Like, and just watching that second hand, it's just enjoyable to wear. Titanium, really obviously easy to wear, perfect size. And I took that to Bali in January, and I swam in it. I took it in jungles. I beat it up. And that's one thing I'd say about my watches. I mean, within reason, some of the vintage stuff, it's kind of stupid to do, but all of the watches I get, I wear, swim with, beat up when I can, you know. This is an interesting watch for me. It's my Datejust 36. So this is the first watch I got that was that size that I wear. I would always think 36 would be too small for me. The two-tone, like I'd never been into two-tone before, ever. I'd always seen it on TV and be like, I just don't like that. I now love it. Everything about this watch is what I wasn't when I got my Submariner. And I love that with watch collecting, you can get to a point in life where you're like, I was wrong about that. Or your taste has matured, or whatever that means. And now, for me, when I wear this, I feel really special. I love it. It was for my 30th birthday last year. My parents very kindly, I mean, you know, again, my parents do not have loads and loads of money. This was a massive thing for them to be able to get me for my birthday.
But it also highlights how you can judge a watch, or falsely judge a watch, perhaps, in images, on paper. And it's not until you get it on the wrist that you can have 100%. A completely different. When your skin frames the watch, that's when you actually get to experience it. 100%. And I was completely with you on the two-tone. I used to hate two-tone, and now I love it. There's something about it.
The Speedy's one of those watches. I mean, everyone that's seriously into watches knows that they have to have one at some point. It's quite a divisive statement. I prefer Speedies to Daytonas. I find 100%. them. I just think from a design perspective, for me, that's perfect. I wanted one with the tritium dial, really, to be completely honest, so I could really kind of get that aged look. But I don't know. This one was within my price range, and I picked it up, and it's starting to get quite beaten up. I love the fact that I have to wind it. You know, like I like that. It's that routine. It's that routine. For me, like this is just the perfect kind of chuck it on t-shirts, jean thing. I still feel like I can wear this out and about. I do wear it, I beat it up, and I like it. So that's not saying I don't want a Daytona, but for me, like this, I think for me that's a perfect watch. Well, like aesthetically, I don't think I'd change anything. I mean, I wish I could swim in it. But I mean, that's obviously like not going to happen. So the last watch we spoke about, so this is my 1803. This has been a bit of a nightmare for me in a few ways. This is a linen dial 36mm day-date, right?
Gorgeous.
With a Sigma dial. Now, the consensus is Sigma dial started in 1970, which means that this case can't be original to the dial. However, I've had a couple of... So I was like freaking out. I was like, what have I done? Yeah. But there's a couple of different opinions here. So Andrew Morgan thinks that there's a chance, and I love his optimism, and this is what I'm going with. There's a chance. I mean, look, we're talking potentially a couple of months. 1969 to 1970. So that could be the case was made in December. They all went home for Christmas and came back in January, and then put the Sigma up. That's one option, right? Yeah. That's my optimist approach. That's one option. The second option is that someone serviced this watch, and then Rolex just swapped the dial out or something, right? Yeah. Or the third option, which I think is probably more realistic, is, you know, up until the 80s, you could go in and say, look, I actually want that dial in this watch. Can you?
I was just about to say.
Can you do that? I'll pay for it. Any of those options, I'm kind of fine with. I'm happy with this, knowing that everything is Rolex as far as I'm aware. It's just there's this different configuration.
And with these dates, there's always bleed with production time. So a case can sit around. Yeah. And there is such a big overlap. But you're absolutely right. Back in the day, you could... My dad used to have an Omega Seamaster. And he talks about, like, every couple of years, you just go in and say, oh, I want a blue dial now. I want a white dial now. And they would just change it around.
You know, it would have been great if it was definitely built at the same time, but put together at the same time. But I love it still. I look at it, I love it. I wish there was a quicker way to set it though, because it is an absolute nightmare. My latest pickup is the watermelon.
That's good. And the one that stands out, but I think it would probably stand out in any watch collection.
Yeah, and again, this is such a... like, all my friends just don't really get this.
Yeah.
And I really do. I always feel happy wearing this watch. And it really pops in the sun. I think Richard's great, and there's a million people making watches that kind of all look the same. Oh, here's another like diver variation. It's like cool, but then you see something like this and you're like, great.
The initial view of these watches is, oh, that's just fun, it's just colourful. And then as soon as you start to dissect the little elements of it, you realise actually there's so much thought that's gone into it.
How he makes the dials as well, like that's complicated. It's not just like an easy, quick thing. And I didn't really know that until a few months ago. And I was like, you know what, it's serious stuff. And like exhibition case, I think the movement looks great. Like it's cool, man. Like
the execution really is fantastic
for the money as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting when Richard talks about his background and being a watch designer for Braun, such a serious, very toned down, minimalist brand. But you can still see those elements here because it's got this cleanliness about it, as well as being fun. So it's very, very clever.
It's a talking point, and people aren't into watches. Whenever I post that on Instagram or whatever, they're like, oh, is that a watermelon? Like, is that inspired by a watermelon? I'm like, yes. And I did
idea.
Yeah, it's great. I did a meet and greet thing on my last show, and a guy came up and he had a Seiko speed timer on, which is, I'd love to get one of them. And he was like, oh, is that a Studio Underdog? And like, even things like that is such an obvious, like if you know what it is, it's such a like talking point. And I like pieces that start conversations with people. So I've been wearing that a lot. The last one is what's on my wrist, which is my only piece unique.
I was going to ask, I've not seen that dial before.
Well, I always feel like a bit of a dick when I go into like a watch shop and I've got it on and they're like, oh, which dial is that? And I never want to say. I hate that conversation. I love Christopher Wood. Patrick and Mike in particular, like just really lovely. And so when I said, look, I want to make a watch that is based on a 1950s Fender Stratocaster. Is it possible? They were very honest. They're like, look, we actually don't know. So we had this interesting kind of back and forth for months of working on different designs, and we had a few different options, and we ended up with this. And I do feel like it. For me, it's perfect. If you're talking about having a watch that feels like it's got crazy high horology, but for the money, I mean, where else do you go? What's the nearest competitor to something like that? 30 grand? Like,
absolutely.
I find myself with that one just like occasionally looking at it, and it's a real moment of reflection to think, actually, like, I've got to a point in my music career where companies are willing to, you know, like embrace the whole like, oh, let's do a watch for James and base it on a guitar. Like that for me is a real like, and I don't undervalue or underappreciate the position I'm in to be able to, you know, do like a piece unique kind of scenario. It is a dream come true. And yeah, I wear it a lot, and that chime as well is just, it's lovely. I think it's in like the key of D. The chime. My cellist in my band is like pitch perfect, which drives me insane because he's so good at. He's like classically trained at Guildhall. And like whenever it goes off, he's like, yeah, D major. So and like even stuff like that is great. So cool. I think the question I ask myself at this point with my watches is like, where do I go from here? And you very kindly said that it felt like a nice kind of collection, and yeah, like I obviously really appreciate that what I've got on the table is I'm very lucky to be in this position. But I think for me, the one thing I'm missing is a moon phase. That's where I'm heading. And I think bizarrely, even picking up this, which obviously is not a moon phase, but having like a gold kind of a little bit more dressy feeling watch has got me into this like motion of my dream, I think, is to wear like a white t-shirt and then like a badass IWC moon phase. It's like a really like highly complicated, crazy thing that probably should be worn with a suit, but I'm in a t-shirt and jeans.
Yeah. I had that sensation at Watch of the Wonders where I tried on this, haven't done the video yet, but I tried on this Cartier.
Yeah.
Solid gold Cartier, like just...
Which one was it?
Stunning. It was a Panthère, but the size are up now, so done a slightly larger.
Big boy.
But solid gold, and it's just this
feeling, isn't there?
With like a suit or someone in a coffee shop in Paris looking sharp as hell, but I was there in jeans and t-shirt, and it looks absolutely awesome.
Great, and I love that. But I also love in our world that you think you're going somewhere, and then someone will drop something, and you'll be like, "Oh my god!" Like I love that. And I like being and I kind of hinted at it before, I'm trying to rekindle that fire of like, as if I don't know anything about watches, and I'm trying to strip back all of my prejudices of companies, of movements, of case sizing, and be like, if something comes that I really like, then give it a chance and go and try it on in the metal, and I might have my mind changed. So I don't know where I'm going, to be honest.
And you made a really interesting point earlier that I noticed about myself. If I research too much about a watch, by the time I buy it, I've done all the storytelling.
You're already on to the next one.
Yeah, I'm already on to the next one. And actually, I've kind of ruined the watch.
Yeah.
I prefer to buy the watch solely on the merit of it just being nice. And then I learn about it. Because you're like, oh, cool. I feel like that's more of a bonding thing.
Yeah.
As opposed to doing all the research, learning all the stories. Then you buy it, and suddenly you think, I've read everything now.
Yeah.
So you then start researching the next one. So yeah, I absolutely recognise that.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's such a killer collection.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.
It makes me want. I already want a lot more vintage. I want more watches.
I just feel like the vintage thing for me. The last thing I'll say is like I do, and this sounds a bit cliche and whatever. Like, but like I feel that I'm a part of the watches story now, and I love the thought that I'm in like a line of people that have owned. Like, you know, if we are looking at this, like who knows when this was made, but you know, someone in either 1969 or 1970 bought that, and buying that then must have been a big move for someone. Like, who was that person? I've no idea. And in the 60 years since then, that's passed through a few. I mean, it's pretty good condition, but it must have passed through a few people. And now I've got it, like a musician on tour in Glasgow. Like, where's that going to end up? I don't know. And I love thinking that I'm just one of those kind of marks on the timeline of these watches. And that's why vintage, I feel like so much more nostalgia and an emotion with that stuff.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So that's where I'm going, I think.
Love that. Thanks so much for coming in, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It's been good.
That's been and long time coming as well. We've been
I know.
For a while, and
I know.
This is the first time we've actually sat down.
I know.
And had a coffee.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks for coming in.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.